no-name bloggers with information. Dude, sources do that because, again, this topic, nobody's going to take it seriously. I'm telling you right the fuck now, everybody better start paying attention, especially dogging on people like, oh, that dude says he's got a source. It's bullshit. I wouldn't be doing that. You guys are going to be, you guys can sit in here, do a
Shane
little
hates me.
circle jerk and talk about all this bullshit, right? Or you can start listening to some of those individuals, correct? Like that UAP Max guy. Some of these things that they're bringing forward, I'm bringing forward, aren't things that any fucking news organization, Newsmax, none of them will take and do anything with.
Shane, what's your opinion on that UAP Max 2-part article?
My opinion on it, I haven't really read it, but I'll say that, man, read it, run it through your filters. But we have to stop disregarding shit because of the messenger. My point is this. Do not disregard shit because of the messenger. Hell, I'm sitting here right now. What was it? I'm going to call her. What was it? Down the rabbit hole, Kelly Chase. What was it? A couple months ago, she was talking shit about how I couldn't have sources and none of this is real. Guess what? She's going on News Nation to talk about all this stuff that's now real that I was talking about 3 months ago. So,
well, we have to be skeptical, though, dude. If somebody comes out with an article that says aliens met with Biden, I am going to be more skeptical than.
Oh no, I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is this.
Yeah, I don't think that happened. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying. No, I didn't know it said aliens met with Biden. I thought he was read in, is what it said.
Oh yeah, read in, and then he was like in Antarctica.
Oh, maybe I'm confused. There's a couple of them that have come out.
No, but if you're talking about the different treaties we have, Astral, you're going to be very surprised because we have multiple, and that's a real deal with multiple.
No, I think that. Yeah.
I take that way more seriously than I used to, simply because Grush said it in that interview. Honestly,
look at it this way: we all know we're in something that not many people talk about, right? How many people, let me ask you this. If you're putting a disclosure plan together and you need people to decimate the information without connecting it to you, how do you do that if news organizations won't take you seriously? Well, you use UFO Twitter, you use bloggers. That's how we got here. I'm not even shitting you. I can I can point to 5 to 6 different creators that were getting some kind of information to help with piece of information for the disclosure plan. From the get-go, this plan started 10 years ago, let's say, right? We'll give it that. This group, old AATIP, what they did is they were making sure there were pieces to the puzzle out in the public sphere that we could find and trying to lead people to them, hoping they were smart enough to develop the story. Now, you don't have a lot of reporters that are UFO researchers, and you don't have a lot of UFO researchers that are good reporters. That was the problem. So this plan that you're talking about, oh yeah, bro, I promise it's more intricate than you can imagine. Weinstein was talking about Sam Harris, and they were pissed because this plan was so complicated, of course it was going to get fucked up, right? But it's not fucked up anymore. So if you guys, when these books come out, I promise you we're going to all be sitting back laughing like, oh, shit, that was like a clue they left. Like they've been leaving us breadcrumbs, and we're picking them up without ever fucking knowing it. So we've got 2 control systems going on right at one time. We have the aliens and we have the humans, right? And some of the humans aren't nefarious, but UFO Twitter also has the disinformation going on. If you don't think it is, I can promise you there are groups within the government who are actually using people to start arguments or actually just decimate disinformation. So you got to pay attention to that shit. It's a shit show, man. We're all you got. I hate to tell you, I'm disclosure, motherfuckers.
No, that's it. Shane, you pretty much nailed it. I had somebody leave me a comment the other day talking about how they know for a fact that there's like a ton of spooks over on Reddit. That like there's entire communities where it's just all intel guys, just talking shit. And some of it's to read the room, some of it's to try to get the temperature, but some of these guys then branch out. And they go into places like, r/UFOs and r/aliens.
Here we go. This isn't for me, by the way. Someone sent this to me, and I'm going to read it now. I don't seem to have many clear memories from before I moved in with my father's parents, maybe late 1986, early 1987. I remember the day very well. I remember pulling up to the house, and nobody was home yet. I'd go to the bathroom really bad. My mom said, just go around to the side of the house. She said that Uncle Joe lived next door. Joe wasn't really my uncle, though. He had been one of my dad's best friends growing up. My dad's sister, Brenda, pulled up to the red Audi. She has a hairstylist and worked at a salon in a mall at the time. My grandfather pulled up after. I remember walking into the house and it looked enormous to me. The crystal chandelier to the foyer glistened when the light was turned on, and the tiny bluebird named Perry in the cage next to the staircase started chirping. My grandparents had my aunt take me up to the stairs and show me her room. She had a baton, from Pep Squad, and pom-poms to distract me. She shut the door so I couldn't hear what was going on downstairs. My grandparents took me from my mom and threw her out. A while later, they had me come out and gave me the room at front of the house around the corner of the stairwell. During my childhood, I experienced a number of visits from shadow people. I had no context as to what exactly I had been seeing until I discovered that they were a signature of remote viewing. The shadow people appeared as just that, resembling the stranger image you would see on a sign denoting "Beware of strangers," wearing what appears to be a fedora. This happened several times during my childhood, way more than I can count. I'd see them walk into my room, the wall opposite of them, and when a slight glow seemed to follow them around. I'd change my room around from time to time. My bedroom wasn't very big, and I didn't have many options. I'd still see the shadow people, no matter what configuration I had in my room and set it up. I noticed that when my foot of the bed was facing the door or the window in the bedroom, I'd experience the same thing. So I moved my bed and put my dresser at the end of the bed. They'd still come through my bedroom door. My dreams have always been extremely vivid. I can recall one where I stood in the center of a darkened corridor. I could smell the dampness in the air and the smell of metal. I walked cautiously down the corridor and saw a reflection of myself. I was young. I'm not sure how old, 11 or 12 at the time. On 2 separate occasions, I was visited by what I would and can only assume were aliens, black in color with large red eyes that glowed. The first time they were 3 and 4. The second time one was different. It had green eyes, and I'd hoped that the green-eyed one would come into my room, but no luck. I got one with red eyes. The alien that came into my room brushed against my left arm on the second visit. I tore off the sheet covering me, and they all quickly swept down the hallway and the stairs, never seeing them again. As I got into my teens, I began to notice that I'd have prophetic dreams. I'd get a glimpse of the future, no context, and a sense of deja vu. Deja vu. I had no control over these dreams, and distinguishing between normal REM sleep and something prophetic seemed nearly impossible. Often, I'd rely on something akin to buzzing sensation, just something enough to get my attention. On one occasion, I found myself at the point that changed my life. I can possibly imagine exactly how much different my life would be if I hadn't chosen to speak up. But the chance presented itself, and I chose not to. Even though I felt something, I later learned that I had spoken up, my words would... I later learned that had I spoken up, my words would have been welcome and almost seemed a loss for... And I almost seemed at a loss for words. As beautiful as the path was, it wasn't the path that would lead the moment that would eventually be led to me discovering the answer to the deepest mysteries of the universe. Are we alone in the universe? September 11th, 2001 was the patriotic awakening of the country. I had been asleep in my bedroom, saw a vision of people running down the thick dust cloud, people covered in a gray ash, crying, screaming. I went out to the living room. Cable news was reporting a small plane had accidentally crashed into one of the World Trade Center towers. In the background, a plane flew by and went unnoticed, and then it happened. Shit, dude, I watched that too while I was at my base. I watched it live too while I was in my first duty day, September 11th, 2001, bro. A second plane crashed in the second tower. I'd been on the phone with my recruiter and told him myself another plane had just hit the second tower. He said he'd call back. More news broke. The Pentagon was hit too. The nation began to panic. The reports of plane crashing into a field in Pennsylvania came in. Towers fell. The news spread, and it was felt that all over the country, the military would see massive influx of young men and women enlisting and demanding justice. I saw an extraterrestrial being the day I shipped from MEPS in November 2001. I was warned in advance that I'd potentially see highly classified material, but I wasn't prepared for that. I happened to glance to my right as I was being taken to my security clearance screening and stopped dead in my tracks and fully faced him. I stared into the eyes and covered my mouth as he approached me. He looked to be roughly 5'10". He had light dolphin gray skin, textured, seemed to match the color. He was wearing a black suit, white shirt, and black tie. He had no noticeable hair, a bump of a nose with nostrils. He had no earlobes. However, he did have ear canals. He had large black eyes. The guy escorting me had to snap me out of it, and he quickly scolded me for looking. We continued walking the hallway to the interview room. They looked me up and down. They looked me up to the monitors, and the monitors were beeping wildly. "What's wrong, buddy? You nervous?" I grinned and shook my head, just blown away by the fact that I'd just seen an alien. I finally knew for sure
We were not alone in the universe, and it was completely on accident. I got sat down in the chair in the interview room, and I said immediately that I know I didn't see anything, pointing the direction down the hall, but I know what I just saw down the hall, and I'm saying right now that I want to work with them. They said they would look into it, pending the results of the screening. My interview began, and I answered my control questions. Then came my allegiance to the country, the usual stuff. I seemed to be asked the same questions over and over again, all spoken in different ways. Then I got to speak with someone over the phone. They spoke overly proper and used very eloquent words and seemed out of place, and I sort of teased them for it, frustrating the interviewer on the other end. One of the guys was visibly entertained and had a bit of a laugh in the basic training segment. However, I got hurt during training and medically discharged. A few years later, I was stepping outside of my house smoking a cigarette and heard a low, deep humming noise. It was pitch black outside, but the floodlight was just overhead the door, so I blocked it with my hat. My eyes adjusted, and I could see a 125 to 150 foot wide disc, roughly 20 to 30 feet tall, in the middle of the tapered. In the middle, it was tapered about 10 feet in the perimeter of the craft. The bottom center spun slowly counterclockwise. The middle area had wide, thin windows that a person walked past. And got to the middle. Looked down, saw me. I waved, and they stepped back, continued going in the direction they were walking, right. Then the craft hissed quietly and slowly started going up, and I lost sight of it. Ran around the back of the house to see if I could find it again, and it appeared over the trees on top of the West Valley wall. It went up slightly, tilted back, took off in a snap. I literally heard a slight cracking sound. It left behind a trail of purple fire, like black-like color. Behind that lasted all of 2 seconds. It took off towards the south and banked west. Never saw it again. The end.
Awesome. Good job. Thank you so much for reading to us.
Yo, that was crazy, dude. All the way from the shadow people to the beings to
Yeah, that was Will. That was straight up Will. Will Niles, man.
They were treating it, I think, increasingly now. The media has to take into account that this is a reality. And I think, again, to go along the theory and the feeling that John Mack has, we let's get past the debate whether they're here or not. Let's start to analyze who they are, how many of them are there, what kind of systems they're using, what their intentions are to us here on their planet, and can we utilize this knowledge to better ourselves as a species.